Hello, it's Mrs. Tremblay. Time again for another math lesson. We're still in section 2.3. I'm calling it 2.3b because I want to review a little something that you touched upon last year, and I just want to make sure we've got it down pat before we move on. So we're going to write equations in slope-intercept form, and remember, slope-intercept form is the one that gives you the slope and the intercept. I know, how are we ever going to remember that? It's crazy. Anyhow, we're going to write an entire equation just by looking at a table and looking at a set of solution points. It's not too bad. Actually, the directions for the steps for each one are the same. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to use your table to find the slope. And we learned in a previous lesson that all you're doing is taking the second y minus the first y divided by the second x minus the first x. Another way to look at that, and you could write it off to the side, change in y over change in x. If you see what y is going up by and divide that by what x is going up by, that's another way to look at it. Right, then you're just going to look at your table and see when x is 0, what's y? Because the y-intercept happens when x is 0. And that'll be your b. It's really that easy. So let's give it a shot. Alright, now I know that you have done the 7 minus 9 over negative 2 minus negative 3. Another way to look at this is the change in y. So when you're looking at y, to get from 9 to 7, and from 7 to 5, and from 5 to 3, we see that y is going down by 2 every time, right? And x goes from negative 3 to negative 2, negative 2 to negative 1, negative 1 to 0. And we're seeing that maybe, we're adding 1 every time. So the slope is equal to the change in y over the change in x. So all you need to do is take what y is going up or down by, divide it by what x is going up or down by, to get your slope. So we know that our slope is negative 2. Now if you would have just done 7 minus 9, the change in y, y2 minus y1, over negative 2 minus negative 3, you still would get that negative 2 over 1. This, counting by what it goes up by, is just another way to look at it. So either way, your slope is negative 2. And looking at this table, when x is 0, y is 3, that means that 3 is my b. So to write an equation for this, I'm just going to say y equals my slope, which is negative 2. The slope always gets the x. And I'm going to add to that my b, which is 3. That's it. All right, let's try another one. Okay. So you can either take negative 1 minus negative 2, or you can look at this and say, okay, negative 2 plus what is negative 1? Well, plus 1. And negative 1 plus 1 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So the change in y is 1. The change in x, negative 2 plus what is 0? Negative 2 plus 2 is 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2, and 2 plus 2 is 4. So that makes my change in x 2. So your slope is 1/2. And looking at this, the y-intercept, and a lot of times people get confused and think, oh, it's right here, it's 0. The y-intercept happens when x is 0. So the b in this case would be negative 1. So your equation would be y equals 1/2 x, and you could either write minus 1, or you could write plus negative 1. Again, is if you don't see that what you're counting up by here, then you can just take negative 1 minus negative 2. If you do that, you're still going to get 1. It ends up working out. All right, next. All right, change in y. And I'm always doing the change in y first so that I don't accidentally reverse it, because that's a common thing. We take x over y because in the data table it's like that. So be very, very careful. All right, change in y. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. That one's going up by 1. So that's my numerator. Here, negative 1 plus 1 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So for my slope, I get 1 over 1. That's just 1. Looking at the table for your y-intercept, when x is 0, y is 2. So we're going to write y equals, now do we need to write y equals 1x? No, we do not need to write y equals 1x, because 1 times x is x. So I'm just going to write y equals x plus 1 for that y-intercept. All right, one more of those. All right, change in y. Well, 2 plus what is 2? Plus 0. Okay, and plus 0 and plus 0. So far for my slope, the numerator is 0. I think I know how this is going to turn out, but humor me, let's do this anyhow. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1 plus 1. And negative 1 plus 1 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So 0 over 1 is what I get. That means my slope, 0 divided by 1, is allowed. Thou shalt not divide by 0, but you can take 0 divided by something. So my slope is 0. My y-intercept is 0, 2. So when you go to write this out, don't say y equals 0x, because what is 0 times x? Yes, it's 0. So we talked about going to the bank and making a deposit of $0. It'd just be silly. You don't need to write 0x. It comes out to be 0. Y just equals 2. So this equation is one of those horizontal lines, and honestly, should be able to tell that in the future. Like if you see the same exact y value all the way across, it's going to be y equals whatever that is. Just like if you saw the same exact x value all the way across the top, it would end up being x equals. We'll talk more about that in later lessons. Alright, continuing along, now I want us to be able to write an equation if you're given solution points. So remember those ordered pairs that make each equation true, all of the ordered pairs, because there are tons and tons and tons of them, an infinite number of them, that make equations true. All we're going to do is do what we did before and find the slope using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And in today's lesson, you're going to be given the y-intercept with the ordered pairs. And again, later on, I will show you what to do. Not today, but later on, I'll show you what to do when it doesn't come out all nice and pretty and you're given the y-intercept. But not yet. All right, so here we have our little ordered pairs. These are our solution points, and I want to know what's the equation for the line that goes across those 2 points. That's all you need to find the solution. So, we're finding the slope. There are our y values, there are our x values. And remember again, this is x1, y1 because it's the first ordered pair. This is x2, y2 because it's the second ordered pair. So, going to just use this little formula right up here. y2 minus y1 would be 4 minus negative 8. And I'm supposed to divide that by x2 minus x1. Don't forget those negative signs. It's not 0 minus 2, it's 0 minus negative 2. And we'll do a little keep, change, change, and keep, change, change, and 12 over 2 equals 6. So our slope is equal to 6. When you look at the ordered pairs, do you see how you are given 0, 4? Yeah, the y-intercept is what happens when x is 0. So you're given the b. The 4 is the b. So y would equal my slope times x plus our y-intercept. Bam! Done. Alright, let's do the next one. I'm going to circle my y's and underline my x's. That's how I usually do it. And the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So keep, change, change. I get 8 over negative 10. Now 8 tenths can be simplified, right? 2 goes into both of those, and it would become 4 fifths. And this negative was in the bottom. I'm just going to put it in the middle because that's usually the way it's written. So my slope will be negative 4 fifths. And looking at these ordered pairs, when x is 0, y is negative 1. That makes negative 1 the b. So y would equal the slope times x, don't forget the x, plus negative 1 or minus 1. I would accept either one at this point in time. All right. Next, if you want to, you could pause me and you could try these last two and then see if you're right. Welcome back. Or not. Maybe you were just humoring me, pretending. It's okay. Alright, anyway, the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And this one, 4 minus 2 is 2, and 0 plus 4 is 4. And we get 2 fourths, and everybody knows that's 1/2, right? 2 fourths equals 1/2. And that's my slope. The y-intercept, of course, is the 4, because when x is 0, that's how I get the y-intercept. So if you wrote y equals 1/2 x plus 4, then winner, winner, chicken dinner. Alright, last one, and then we're done with this lesson. I'm going to circle my y's, underline my x's. The slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So, keep, change, change, I get negative 5. Keep, change, change, I get 0. Oh my goodness. Negative 5 divided by 0. You know what that means? That doesn't mean my slope is 0. That means my slope is undefined. And if you have a slope that is undefined, that means you're going to have an x equals equation. Now remember back over here when I said if all the y values are the same, you know it's y equals whatever that is. And if all the x values are the same, the equation is x equals whatever that is. Well, in this set of ordered pairs, do you see how the x values are exactly the same? X isn't allowed to repeat. So this isn't your regular old function that can be solved for y, right? Remember, x no repeats. Yes, I know you remember that. So for this one, the equation would actually be x equals negative 3. Now you are done. See you tomorrow.